Boon Illumination, a brand new Alan Wake perk that reveals the auras of all generators and chests after you bless a totem. A lot of people consider Boon Illumination to be the worst Alan Wake perk, but let me stop you right there. The question isn't, is this perk helpful? The question is, will your teammates actually use the information this perk provides? And that's the million-dollar question. Not one of you will argue that this perk is useless. You are more likely to complain that your teammates still managed to 3-gen themselves despite knowing exactly where the generators were. But luckily, I got an opportunity to use this perk a fair bit. I went into the lab and studied the behavior of my teammates. I felt like one of those weird 2012 YouTubers performing a stupid-ass social experiment. Like, do you guys remember Joey Salads? I do not miss that era of YouTube. The feedback I got from Boon Illumination was way more interesting than any Joey Salads video. I'll go over that, but more importantly, we're putting Boon Illumination through my trademark 1 to 18 star rating system. There are now 5 Boon perks in the game, most of which are pretty trash. Boon Circle of Healing is probably the perk you can argue is the most helpful. If you set up the boon in a central location, you're basically giving everyone on your team botany knowledge. Boon Exponential is also helpful, oddly enough. If you're going to be playing very aggressive and body blocking, it can be extremely valuable to allow your teammates to pick themselves back up. That's why I've seen Sabo squads flock to this perk a fair bit. Boon Shadow Step is perfect for absolutely nobody, and I've never seen anybody use this perk in a way that makes sense. And Boon Dark Theory, you know what? I'm gonna say it. Nobody uses Boon Dark Theory. Look out, here comes the comments, guys. Which leaves us with Boon Illumination. Overall, it's nothing really impressive or necessarily game-changing. If I were to guess, it's probably pretty middle of the road in the world of Boon, but that's why we're here today. We need to dig a little deeper. If you play Solo Survivor, this perk is probably interesting to you. Solo Survivor is a challenge on its own because of the lack of information between the group. Boon Illumination closes that gap a tiny bit. Unless you're an appraisal or ace in the hole gamer, seeing the auras of chests will have little to no benefit to the team. The major benefit is being able to see the auras of all the generators. In a perfect world, your teammates handle 2 of the 3 gens that are closest to each other, then pick generators to work on that would benefit everybody in the end game. This perk has a similar purpose to Deja Vu with some different pros and some different cons. Boon Illumination shows all generators, not just the closest 3, and with Boon Illumination, your teammates also get to see all of the generators. But they have to be standing in the boon's range. You also have to find a boon totem to bless. And because I'm not a boon expert, I had to run small game with Boon Illumination in order to find a boon fast. But that's just me. I have so much pressure on me to provide above average perk reviews, I just didn't have time to search the entire map for one boon. Now, what if you hate playing solo queue and only want to play in squads? Well, then you should join me at twitch.tv/SouthLoopStraz, where I do open lobbies every other week. You can be part of the perk reviews themselves and hang out in voice chat on Discord, where we don't need to worry about 3-genning ourselves. Or at least I hope not. Now back to Boon Illumination. In a Swift, this perk loses a little bit of its gusto. I'm not an MLG gamer, but with callouts, I feel like my team has a good idea of where the gens are at. I think it's funny to picture a sweaty squad using a perk like Boon Illumination, all huddled up like a football team at the start of the match. One guy barking orders at his team like a quarterback. Left gen, 80, cornfield, 2 on check, break. Yeah, I just don't see many squads using this perk. So now let's go back to solo queue. I studied my teammates and tried to get a grasp on how they would react when provided the auras of all the generators on the map. And here's the reality. It was an even mix. A good chunk of games went on like nothing had changed. Survivors continued to work on whatever gen they wanted to work on, with zero awareness of how close together they were. Then there were games where we were able to strategically knock out gens to leave ourselves in a great position at the end of the game. There were games where I noticed my teammates going back into the boon briefly to identify which generator they wanted to work on next. I know this is kind of a disappointing answer, but it's impossible to know how your teammates are going to respond. I know I'm not always the perfect teammate. When I'm streaming, sometimes I'm talking to chat and I have my attention away from the game. I'm sure some people are probably jamming out to music while they play, or maybe they're watching TV in the background, or maybe they're just tired. A distracted teammate is probably going to waste this perk, while a dialed in teammate might not even need this perk, which leaves Boon Illumination in a weird spot. This perk is helpful sometimes, in solo queue mostly, when teammates need information, but aren't good enough to do gens without that information, but aren't distracted while they play, but they use their common sense most of the time. It's just a lot. I'll give it 6 out of 18 stars. It's just too inconsistent to rely on every game, and that's why you gotta look out for yourself. There are solo builds you can make with the perk Deadline that blow this perk out of the water. You can watch that perk review right here.